Welcome. Today I'm working on another marsh, working kind of an intense green. I'll be working primarily with sap green, phthalo yellow green, and an olive green, working with some cobalt blue in my sky, putting in a light wash, keeping the sky relatively simple since my foregrounds, as you'll see, is going to be a little bit intense. I am going to put a tiny little building in there and a little background tree line. So I'll try to keep that little structure dry so I can come back in at the end and work that, dabbing just a little bit to keep my sky cleaner and, like a typical blue, slightly cloudy day. I'm going to mix my three greens and start out with a light wash just to kind of get my bearing on the design. I did pencil in initially ever so slightly just to give an outline of where I want my marsh waterway to travel through this green field that you'll see. I'm going to come in with the phthalo green and a touch of the sap green and just, again, kind of give it a little wash so I can kind of see where I'm headed. Keeping it relatively wet. I jumped ahead a little bit here. Truth be told, I didn't turn the video on, so I missed a little bit of that, but it wasn't that exciting. It was just more of the wash. I'm going to go in a little bit drier now, not having the wet on wet anymore. My brush is on the wetter side. My palette has a little bit of water in it, so I have a tiny bit of control here, but yet not coming into much intensity yet. I'll be introducing Payne's Gray for my shadow line in the waterway, which you'll see will be meandering back. The little stream in the foreground needs some shadowing where you'll see grasses are going to be coming. And here's where I start to introduce the waterway. And you'll see I laid down some pigment and then I manipulate it with a clean brush. So I might put an intense amount down and that's the Payne's Gray, and just showing the path back or forward, if you will. Keeping an eye on the entire piece for movement of the paint. And, you'll see my brush, kind of moves all over the place as I watch the process of drying with watercolor, as I've spoken of so many times. I'm putting in a little ultramarine blue with Payne's Gray to give me that waterway. Just putting a light wash in that. Again, it always dries lighter, so I'll put that down. It might look a little darker than I want right now, but it will lighten up, keeping in mind my shadows again. I'm going to start with some of my strokes. I'm going to be having some grasses in the foreground. So I do try to have my strokes go in the direction of the path or the grasses or the water, so that works with the design. Bringing in a little bit more definition to the marsh water path there. Coming back in with some Payne's Gray. And I'll be manipulating that quite a bit. The shadows are going to be very important with this piece, especially in that little bit of water you're seeing in the foreground. Keeping in mind the strokes, as you see, my grasses and shadows are going vertical now. Again, trying to stay with the way nature is naturally. And you know, as I go in the background, you notice that my lines get thinner and thinner, obviously, with the distance, keeping in mind that it should recede, right? And I don't fill in the lines of the Marsh waterway. I kind of, you know, dot it here and there because it isn't one straight line. You know, you're not going to see the entire line of that stream, you know, so breaking it up a little bit looks a little more natural. Now working a little drier, you can see where it's starting to show more definition. Getting in a few verticals, even in the distance, ever so slightly. Taking a little bit of alizarin crimson and the Payne's Gray to make a bit of a brown there in a shadow reflection in the water. Giving that slight impression of shade. Coming back in with my greens. I'm going to have to pump up the intensity of my greens now and really get some definition. Still working wet, but not super wet. Continuing to go in with my three greens, the phthalo green, yellow green, the olive green, and the sap green, to bring a little more intensity into the piece. I'm continuing to work the foreground here, giving it a little more definition. Going vertical in some of my strokes now. Need to go through the whole foreground and marsh area and just really bring it to life with the intensity of the greens. Not covering up the whole thing because it would be a waste to not show the basic stuff I had done before, the highlights. Going in with some vertical dry strokes now. Going back in with some Payne's Gray to give a little more intensity. And not, you know, filling in the gaps there. It's just gestures. Working with that cad yellow light. Mixing it in with the greens. Gives a whole new color of highlight there. And as I'm in the back, you know, the grass isn't as defined in the background, so it's just gestures of the color. Again, not filling, just strokes here and there. Keeping in mind, stay vertical now with your strokes to try to give a gesture of the grasses. A little bit of that cadmium yellow light to show some highlights with, I brought in a little bit of the yellow ochre and some, believe it or not, some Payne's gray to get, you know, the muddy water shadow there. I'll be needing to go back in with some straight Payne's gray just to intensify the shadow. And I come back in with another brush and just kind of wash it, stroke it out so it's a little finer. Using my brush, the fan brush. I'm not right-handed, so it's difficult for me sometimes to use my right hand, but I have to. Going to go into the water a little bit with the grass to overlap and basically get the water behind the grass. And I'll put these strokes down of grass and then come back in and, you know, fan it out a little bit. That seems to work pretty well with the fan brush, using it sideways to help get the intensity. And then just giving a little grass in the background, just a gesture. You know, the further you get away from the foreground in that scene, the less blades you'll see. It's just in the foreground. Kind of like the lines in the background go thinner the further back you go. I haven't forgotten about the house in the background. I'll be doing that a little bit later, but I'm just concentrating here with the foreground and that shadow, which I'm liking. That's life in the way here, the phone ringing. So yeah, here, that little bit of Payne's gray really helped out with that. With the intensity of that. Keeping those strokes straight, vertical, and getting a little zigzaggy in the water. And I'm liking how that's looking. And just fine little strokes. Fanning it out again. I'm going to go in and work on that house and put the final touches there, just a gesture again. And then I'll be close to done. I hope you've liked this video. Like and subscribe, and I hope you continue to follow. It's been fun working on this piece. I hope you've enjoyed it. Get some painting done. I hope to see you next time. Have a great day.